Are you having issues with histamines, sensitivities, eating certain foods? Well, I'm here to help you with that. My name's Diane Lalomia, and I'm going to share some ideas, tips, tricks that I've learned how to deal with life as a highly sensitive person, both in the kitchen and elsewhere. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. The tomatoes are getting ripe here in northern Michigan, and ours are no exception. They're bigger than ever, and it's time to do the canning of the sauce. And today I've got a lot of tomatoes to work with. This is only half of them. My job is to wash the tomatoes and cut them into sizes, coring them and getting them prepared for the machine over here. This is my husband's operation, and this year he got a mechanical motor. This year he got a motor for his Victorio Strainer, as we've always known it. And this is the first feed of the tomatoes. It's a little loud, but not too bad. The tomatoes go through as gets processed, and there's a lot of sauce. As you can see, it's squirting at the camera. I was lucky I didn't get hit. After they go through the first time, a second time he'll run them through. And this time you can see how the tomatoes are really dry. It's just skin and seeds. There's really not much juice coming out that one end, and there's a whole lot of juice left coming out the sauce end. It's worth it. And it makes for a lot of sauce. Good sauce, too. I usually cook my sauce down about halfway to get a nice thick sauce. If you only cook it down about a third of the way, you'll get a thinner sauce, but still good. I ended up with 20 pints of sauce in the end. Actually, 22 and a half. 2.5 pints went into the refrigerator. They didn't make it into the canner. My pressure canner held 10 regular size regular, listen to that bang, I love it. My canner holds 20 regular mouth-sized jars, 10 on the bottom, and a stackable layer with the insert and then another 10 on top. They process faster too, actually. And you can hear the cans as they're sealing. There's another one that'll ping here in just a minute, but this will make for some good sauce. And we have yet another half of the tomato harvest to go. I don't use any seasonings in my tomato sauce. I prefer to have just plain sauce. No salt, no nothing. Yep, there goes another one. When I was a little kid, I was considered a picky eater. I never knew what would agree with me and what wouldn't. It was kind of like playing the slot machine. You never know when you were going to actually hit the jackpot. And food was going to make you happy. I struggled from the time I was 2 weeks old trying to eat any food. It was only milk at that time. At 2 months old, I had surgery for pyloric stenosis. I hung on for a long time during that 2 weeks to 2 months and almost starved to death. I did a lot of detective work and a lot of studying to figure out what was going on and why I was so different. I was told I was allergic to strawberries at one time, and another time allergic to penicillin. Neither were true. I tried the gluten-free diets and the dairy-free diets, and actually, the healthier I tried to eat, the worse I felt. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. It was very confusing. Nobody had told me anything about histamine. It was only after I learned that I had to grow my own food and then preserve it so that I could be aware of what I was eating. I could eat the salsa verde, but I was a little chicken about eating some of the hotter peppers. I have a limit to how much spice I can handle. Not all the food that you see me preparing is necessarily something I eat every single day. I have to watch the amount of histamines that I have in my diet so that I can eat more foods without being overloaded and overflowing the histamine bucket. By knowing what each ingredient is in my foods when I can know what I'm actually eating and can control that histamine level. Here I'm using some tomato sauce in packets, in a pouch instead of a can. One of the first things I learned when I first got married to my Italian husband was that I could actually eat tomatoes if my mother-in-law canned them in glass jars. I could never tolerate tomatoes if they came in a tin can, an aluminum tin can. The acid in the tomatoes reacted with the metals in the can, and I reacted with those metals, apparently. So, after many years of exploring and understanding a little bit better, I've figured out some things that I can tolerate, but only certain ways that they are prepared or processed. So here I'm using this organic tomato paste in a pouch, which I can use the leftover later. I don't end up throwing out the rest of the can this way. So it's a savings too. Right now I'm making beef stroganoff, and I already have stew meat in there and some organic mushrooms, some onions, and some garlic. And I'm just at the point of doing the seasonings. Everyone needs salt. This is the real salt by Redmond Salt. It has not only the salt, but the minerals too, because minerals are important. Not many people realize how important they are. I have a problem with eating black pepper, and it's almost in everything processed. So by canning my own food, I can avoid using black pepper and only use ingredients that I can tolerate. Now, not everyone can tolerate these ingredients, and at one time I couldn't even tolerate some of these ingredients. This Worcestershire sauce, I don't know if I said it right, is organic, and I got it on my Azure order. I know that being organic, at least the soy that is included in this particular product is an organic and not genetically modified. I hate to tell you this, people, but it's not gluten, it's glyphosate. It's tearing people's guts up, and I know a lot about GMOs. I did a lot of work on the GMO movement about a dozen years ago. Here I'm using some herb seasonings. You can use whatever floats your boat as far as the herbal seasonings go. That is not really a strict rule with canning. Those can be adjusted to your needs. Canning is a precise science, and it does need to follow certain rules, but this is one that allows you to have your particular taste in mind. So now I'm going to add the beef stock. I started to say broth, but that's where it differs for me. Beef broth or bone broth of any animal is really a good thing for most people, and especially for someone like myself. With Ehlers-Danlos issues, I have to be mindful of trying to get collagen where I can because I have issues with not making enough collagen. And everybody says the beef bone broth is the best thing, and that's the best collagen source. But for someone with histamine issues, that can be real problematic. You see, one thing I did learn about GMOs and glyphosate is that the animals that eat a glyphosate-heavy residue diet, like the CAFO animals, the highest percentages of glyphosate was found in their bones, according to a USDA study. And this was alarming because, when you're doing this beef bone broth, that's what you're getting, a lot of toxins that are in the bones, this glyphosate especially. So with the beef stock, it is made with the beef, but not the bones where it has that collagen. So it's a trade-off. Yes, I'm not getting all the collagen, but I'm getting something that's more digestible for me. Now here I'm making sure that I debubble. I'm using a chopstick, but I want to make sure that I have a 1-inch minimum headspace. You can be a little generous. to 1 1/4 inch when you're dealing with meat. This is one of the first tricks about avoiding siphoning. With meat products and your canning under pressure, you will have a tendency to have siphoning happen if you don't allow enough headspace. The meat makes more juices and increases the volume inside the jar, so you want to allow for that increase to happen as the meat cooks. Here I'm topping it off with just a little bit more beef stock before I wipe the rims and put on the lids and get it ready for the canner. Here I've got the flame turned down low. I start off low and slow. You see, the raw pack method for these meats, all of the items are cold and the jars are cold. So when they go in the canner, it has cold water, and I warm it up slowly over 10 minutes time before proceeding with the pressure canning. This year, the grasshoppers were terrible. Derby and I go for a walk in the garden, and you can see the grasshoppers flopping everywhere. He wants to show me what he did in the garden. It wasn't really something I was happy about, but he seemed to be really proud. My marigolds. You see, he had a favorite marigold that he had a little house in. I guess he laid on top of it, and he broke it. That's kind of the way the histamine bucket is. It gets too full, and it breaks. 1 minute, everything's beautiful, and the next minute, not so much. You know, it's like I'm sensitive, kind of like the morning glory is sensitive to light. I'm sensitive to a lot of things like foods and other things such as chemicals and whatnot. But you know the black beans that I harvested? I got a whopping 6 pounds and some when they were shelled and dried. So I'm pretty glad. And the next to last day of picking the beans, I found this, a chrysalis for a monarch butterfly. I went looking the next day for any more caterpillars. This bristly guy wasn't it, but I did find other ones hiding in the milkweeds, eating them up. This is a headshot with a longer antenna on this end. They typically hang upside down, and this one looks right side up, but one day I found this one pooping in my face, so I learned. There's two of the monarch caterpillars on the leaves in the milkweed, and one that had already hatched from the one I found in the beans. He or she has been hanging around. Now this was an encounter I found interesting. A standoff.
Oh, did you see that?
This is considered an angel wing butterfly. That's a classification for certain ones, the different particular ones, and this one is called a gray comma. The outside of the wings look like wood. You'd be camouflaged on a tree really good. Now we're going to my happy place. My studio. This is where I paint. This is where I have learned to find the peace and calm in the crazy world we live in. I can go in the studio, put on my headphones, and paint and lose myself for hours. Here I'm doing a Skillshare class and I'm listening to the instructor and I'm following along as I paint. I'm also video taping this. I'm not always good at multitasking, so when I'm in the kitchen, sometimes I can manage to do the canning and the filming and talk and all of the things included. Other times that's just way too much. I get overwhelmed. So I'll do a voiceover and I'll just take you along that way. Here I'm working on the dress. It's actually a second layer that's going on to darken up some of the shadows and bring some dimension to the piece. I have a long ways to go on this painting. I'm just part way through, but I wanted to take a few minutes and just explain a little bit about how I got started and why. See, my sensitivity issues, like I said, aren't just limited to food. I'm also very sensitive to certain smells, definitely sounds, and I get overwhelmed with a lot of issues like that. I found out that my hearing was actually tested for an employment that I had. It was required, and I was told that I had the hearing in the high frequency range, that of a dog, that I was out of human range and actually had a very sensitive hearing. So I guess that explains why I didn't attend rock concerts as a young person. I didn't seem to fit in because I couldn't handle the louder music. So I just found myself finding solitary hobbies and whatnot. But I did get into art back in high school, and I tried to do some painting. But when I worked with oil paints, I found myself very sensitive to the different products that were used with oil paints, the turpentines and the paint thinners and different ingredients for an oil painting experience left me less than feeling well. I learned that that was not for me. And I tried acrylics, but at that time there wasn't any internet, and I didn't know how to deal with acrylics, and I found that they dried way too fast. I didn't know about wet palettes and the such. Well, when COVID struck and we were facing lockdowns and the world went crazy and everything was upside down, I found watercolor. I started out with a fairly cheap set of watercolors, not a bad set, but just a very inexpensive watercolor set. Had lots of colors that attracted me, and I got a watercolor book to practice in, and I tried a few YouTube videos. Well, I really enjoyed it, but I noticed how the paper wasn't staying flat. It was really cheap and it wrinkled. I also noticed how the watercolors were limiting to some degree, because I found a free class with an instructor that was really very good, one of my first instructors, Anna Mason, and she taught me about the right brushes and the right professional grade watercolors and how I could start out with just a few colors and work my way up. I learned about watercolor paper and its properties. I learned a lot watching YouTube videos. I used to call it YouTube University. But in time, I got the tools I needed and the watercolor supplies that helped me grow as an artist. And I found how much I enjoyed it. I'm not a Rembrandt, and I will never, aspire to be a great artist. I mean, I'm just enjoying the time, relaxing, painting. Oftentimes I'll put on headphones and listen to classical music. That's typically what I listen to when I'm painting. And it's as though I'm in another world. It allows me to relax my central nervous system. Whoops, good catch. And recharge my battery, so to speak. Not everybody is a painter or can draw, but there is always something, some interest that everyone has where they get lost in what they're doing, so much so that the clock can go several hours before they realize it hasn't been just 10 minutes. That something for you is a way for you to find a way to balance and find peace and restore your nervous system after all of the things in society, the craziness that we see in the news and when we're out and about. It's just gotten really crazy. And I think everybody is seeing effects of the anxiety it can produce. And the way to counterbalance it is to find that special something that gives you peace. And this is the other side of the coin, and you'll see in a lot of my videos is how I end up doing a lot of photography in the garden because the garden is another source of peace. It gives me a tranquility. It gives me sunshine, and I go out barefoot, and it allows me to ground. I have a lot of information on my blog, and you can find me on Substack. Same name, dianelalomia.substack.com. And I've written about pyloric stenosis and a lot of different things, such as grounding and other interesting items that I've researched and discovered. And I invite you to go there and learn more yourself. But for now, I'm just having fun making some YouTube videos. As a retired programmer, I'm finding it a very interesting thing to get into. I did photography as a young bride. Right after we got married, I took a college class and did a black and white film photography class. Yes, we used film, and I learned how to develop the film. And it was before the digital age. So yeah, I'm that old. Anyways, my love for photography led me to drive videos. And that's how I got interested in YouTube. I started out initially doing some YouTube videos just for places we went on day trips, just to remember things by and to get a chance to practice the technical side of things. And over time, I made some other videos and tried my hand at different effects and adding text and music, and there was always something new to learn. I took it one step further each time. And over time, I had a lot of fun learning this. But I wasn't really doing it for any viewers or subscribers or anything like that. I was being very selfish, doing it for me. And last year, over the summer, our 2 cats had 2 litters of kittens. And we had lots of fun with the kittens. And I really enjoyed watching them grow and each week doing a video to mark their growth and how they were progressing so I could go back and enjoy them all over again because kittens only stay little for so long. Well, those videos I did, I had a lot of fun with, and apparently other people enjoyed them because I found myself getting thousands of views and gaining subscribers. And lo and behold, I had a channel. So I got into the Everything Counts challenge last month and decided it's time for me to try to make a video to help others because I feel like my story might help other people with dealing with their pressures and anxieties. As you can see, I developed and I see this progression in my paintings. By taking a photo, I can step back and see the forest for the trees. The teacher was on Skillshare, and you just saw his bio there. It's my first class taking it with him, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm coming along little bit by little bit. It's going to be finished. But for your information, I've included the recipes that I made in the video and the cookbook that they came from. And just for a little fun, there's an outtake at the end, just so you know that I'm not always so serious. Hi again. Let's try the lights. Oh, and now I'm tethered. This is just to test the sound anyway, because I don't have my teeth in. Hey, you know what? We just don't always have it together. You don't really want to see the morning routine for a grandma blog, do ya? You couldn't take it.